Hi everyone, I'm Celine from Calla Patterns and welcome to the video for the Sage booklet. Before I go through what you're going to need to make the booklet, I'm going to just show you what it looks like because it's fairly important that you be able to envision the final end product so that you know which fabric to cut, and you'll want to pay attention to things like the direction of your fabric and things like that. So this is the exterior of the booklet. This is my exterior print, and there is a seam here at the back. So take note that you're going to be cutting two pieces. And depending on whether or not you're using a directional print, you're going to want to cut a set of mirror image pieces for here. And also pay attention to how you want your print to go. So you might want it to go directionally this way, or this way. So if you're fussy cutting, that's something that you're going to want to pay attention to. So first I'm going to open it up right away to the center. Now here I ended up using most of them are different fabrics for the vinyl pockets. There are two that are similar, so the two at the back here. So when you're cutting, you're going to be cutting 4 lining pieces that will be shown in the back, in beneath the vinyl of the vinyl pockets, and there are 4. So if I fold in the middle, you'll see these 2 are going to be placed so that they are wrong sides together with the exterior. So you'll want to choose accordingly for that. Now, my print is directional, but it's going in this direction. That's just a personal choice that I made. I could have easily had it go this way. Really, it's all up to you. And then if I open it up here, in the middle here, now normally I would probably make these 2 look identical, but I wanted to use different fabrics. Here again, the direction of my prints are going this way and this way, but I could have easily made them go this way. Now, behind the 2 middle vinyl pockets, I have 2 mesh pockets. And here again, I could have used the same prints, but I chose to use a whole bunch of different coordinating prints to make it really interesting. So you'll want to pay attention. Here, I always cut my mesh pocket fabric if it's directional. It's always going in this direction. And same with this one, I cut it so that it's going in this direction. So in total, you're cutting 8 pieces that are the same size. 2 of them will be on the exterior, and I recommend cutting those mirror image if you're using a directional print. And then you're cutting out 4 that will be used for vinyl pockets. 2 of the vinyl pockets are the back and the front cover, and then 2 of them are right at the center. And then you're cutting another 2 additional lining pieces, and those are going to be used for your mesh pockets. So really, if you think about it in terms of panels, there's going to be 2 exterior panels, and there's going to be a total of 6 interior panels. Okay, so I'm going to keep this handy when we're doing the cutting out of the various pieces that you're going to need, because I'm going to refer to these quite often. The booklet that I'm making in the video, I decided to do a slightly different layout. So it'll give you an idea on how you can really change things up from booklet to booklet, which makes this a really fun project, as well as being handy. It's really great for storing sewing supplies, craft supplies, cosmetics. I mean, the possibilities are really endless. Okay, so just set this aside, and then we'll go through what we're going to need to make the bag. So before you start, print out your pattern and make sure that you read through the entire thing before you start cutting or anything at all. You don't need a lot of material. Most of it is going to be cotton fabric. So you're going to need a fat quarter of exterior fabric, so that's this. I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of pieces left over, but I'm just mentioning the smallest cut that you can usually buy, which is a fat quarter. So a fat quarter is plenty for the front and the back here. Then you're going to need some binding fabric. So you are doing, here these are not cut on the bias, but these are little binding fabric strips that are going to be attached to your vinyl pieces. And then you're going to need a very long piece that is cut on the bias. You're going to make a total of 104 inches long of bias binding. And some of it is going to be used to bind the exterior layer, and then the other piece is going to be used to bind the interior layers. And then, of course, you're going to need lining fabric. Now, I put a total amount that you're going to need, which is half a yard. However, if you're doing like me and you're using a whole bunch of coordinating prints from a collection, you just need a very small piece of each one. And then, of course, you're going to need some mesh fabric, a piece that is 18 inches by 18 inches. If you're wondering what I'm using, this is just by Annie's mesh, which comes in a whole bunch of different colors and usually also has a matching fold-over elastic that you can buy for each color. In terms of interfacing, you're going to need some fusible woven interfacing, 3/4 of a yard approximately. Then you'll either need fusible fleece or something like Decaville Light. I'm using a heavyweight woven instead because that's what I have on hand. That's what I sell in my shop. You'll need 1/4 yard or less of that. It really depends on the width that you're using. Decaville Light is usually quite narrow, I believe 17 inches. So that one there you would need a bit more. So you'll have to change that quantity depending on what material you've decided to use. But it should be a fusible, and it can be so either fusible fleece, Decaville Light, or like I'm using a heavyweight woven. And then you're going to need a firm sew-in interfacing. I recommend using Peltex. That is 20 inches wide, and you're going to need about half a yard of it, and you're going to just be inserting it in all of these different sections just to give it some rigidity. In terms of notions and supplies that you'll need in addition to your fabric and interfacing, you're going to need some clear vinyl. Here I did use a variety of different prints and patterns. But in total, you'll need about 21 inches by 12 inches. Then you're going to need 4 zippers. I'm using zipper tape. So you'll need 4 of them that are about 11 inches long. If they're a little bit longer, that's okay. So you'll need 4 of those. And I'm using a 4.5, number 5 zipper tape, but 4.5 will also work. You're also going to need an 18 millimeter magnetic snap. So my little package here has 2, but I'm only going to need 1, and that is for the tab closure here. Then you're going to need 18 inches of fold over elastic. That's the elastic that you see at the top of the mesh here. So you're going to need 18 inches total, and you're going to cut that into 2 9-inch lengths. Now I've included some tips here at the bottom of page 2 for sewing with vinyl if you've never sewn with vinyl before, but there's a way to get around sewing this pattern here where the foot of your machine really doesn't have to come into direct contact with the vinyl very much. So it's a bit of an easier vinyl project. Now on page 3, I've included some photos. My printer is only black and white, so these are black and white photos, but in the pattern, they are full color photos. I've made already quite a few of these booklets because they're a lot of fun to make. And so I just named the different pieces of the booklet so that when you're cutting out, you'll be able to refer to these pictures and know where that fabric is going to be used in the booklet. On page 4 at the top, I have a cutting chart. So these are all the different pieces that you're going to need to cut out, and then the type of material you need to cut them out of. So some of these are using pattern pieces, and some of them you can cut to measurements. So if there's a measurement provided, then that one you don't need to print out the pattern piece. You can just cut to measurements. Okay, so we're going to go through the cutting chart and I'll show you the pieces that I cut out for each of the parts that I've mentioned in the list here. The first thing you're going to cut out are your pouch body pieces. So I have a list here of the items that you need to cut from this pattern piece. And there's a few notes that you should pay attention to on the pattern piece itself. So I'm giving you a direction suggestion. If you're using a directional print, I'm giving you just a suggestion for the cutting direction for your the pieces that you're cutting, but feel free to ignore them and do whatever you like. You don't necessarily have to follow what I am asking you to do or my suggestions. The only one where you really should pay attention to, I would say, are the mesh pocket lining pieces. So you'll see that the pouch body pattern piece, you should be printing out 2 copies. And one of them you're going to cut at the dash line here, and that's going to be used to cut out your mesh. So that is the only thing that really you should be paying attention to for cutting the mesh and the mesh pocket lining pieces, the fabric pieces that will be behind the mesh pocket. So I'm going to go through all of the pieces, the cotton pieces that I cut from this pattern piece. I'll start with that. So for my exterior fabric, just to make it easier for you to follow along, I've decided to make my exterior in this snake print. So I did cut 2 pieces mirror image. So you'll see that I want the print to be upright. So I have my rounded corners here and then the straight line in the middle. So I did cut these mirror image. And mirror image just means that obviously you want them to be mirrored to each other, but to cut out mirrored pieces, you can just place your fabric wrong sides together like this. So let's say you're using yardage, you just place it wrong sides together, place your pattern piece over top, and you're cutting out 2 at once. Now obviously I did not do that because I fussy cut a snake, so I cut 1 at a time, and I just flipped the pattern piece, one like this and one like this. So depending on your situation, you just choose the way that you'd like to cut those 2 exterior pieces. And now I've cut 6 different lining pieces. First I'll show you the fabric that I'm going to use behind the mesh pockets. So I did fussy cut some owls, but I did cut them mirror image, these pieces. And just to let you visualize this, so I want this owl to be here, and then if I go to the other mesh pocket, I'm going to have this owl be here. Okay, so these are cut mirror image. And then for the various vinyl pockets, so I chose 2 identical prints for this one and this one, same as I did on this one, except that I decided so this one here, my print does go this way. Let's see, cut mirror image like this and like this. So that's where these are going to go. And it is a directional print in this direction here. So I did follow my suggestion there. But for the middle ones, I decided to cut these, and I fussy cut. So you're going to see these birds and these birds through the vinyl. Place them like this. But you'll see it is cut mirror image, and I want the focus to be on this section where I'm going to have the vinyl. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how you can cut and place the various fabrics that you need to cut. Now, from the pouch body pattern piece, you also need to cut out, and it's in the list here, you need to cut out 8 pieces of fusible woven interfacing. So now, as I mentioned earlier, I also, from this pouch body pattern piece, you print a second copy and you cut at the dash line. And then you cut mirror image 1 set of mesh pocket pieces. Okay, and the mesh, this is the direction you want it. So you'll notice mesh fabric has 1 stretchy side and 1 non-stretchy side. So you want the the stretch to go sideways to expand for the items that you're going to put inside. And then here is the matching fold over elastic that I'm going to be using for the top edge of those mesh pieces. So that's all you're going to be cutting from the pouch body. So the next thing you're going to need to cut is the vinyl pouch binding. So you can either use this pattern piece that I provided, or you can cut to dimensions that I mentioned in the cutting chart. And you need 4 pieces of cotton fabric. You don't need interfacing for these, and I'll show you where these are going to be located. It's this piece right here that is attached to the vinyl, and it's just on the bottom edge of the zipper. Then the vinyl window. So this is a pattern piece. This is what it looks like. And you cut 4 clear vinyl. I've decided to use all the same vinyl for this booklet, and it's just a mini glitter. Hopefully you can see it, but it's just a mini glitter. And I still have the plastic film over top. Body binding. So I just cut a whole bunch of strips, and these are cut on the bias. So if you look at my cutting mat here, this line here is a 45-degree angle. So when you're cutting, you're placing your fabric on your cutting mat like this. So this in this direction. And then you're using a large clear ruler and you're cutting across here at a 45-degree angle. And the strips need to be 2 1/4 inches wide. So I just cut a whole bunch of them. And then I'll show you later, I'm just going to sew them together and make one long strip. The vinyl pouch upper panel. I'm going to show you where that is here. So that's this piece here, 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 and here. Now you can make this the same fabric as your vinyl pouch binding. You can make it a different fabric. It's really use your creativity and choose whatever you would like. I decided to use the same as the binding fabric. So that's this pattern piece here. And you're cutting out 4 lining fabric, and you're cutting out 4 fusible woven interfacing for this. Tab closure. Now you could have fun with the tab and do a little fussy cut image here. Really, it's up to you what you'd like to do. For this sample, I just ended up using the binding fabric. But for this one, I decided to make a little tab that has a little fussy cut bird. So that's what mine is going to look like. That's going to be the underside of the tab, so that one doesn't matter as much. And then you're going to need 2 fusible woven interfacing and 1 piece of fusible fleece. And the fusible fleece is going to be going on the bottom layer, and that will just give the cotton fabric a little bit more structure for the installation of the magnetic snap. Okay, so that's your tab closure pattern piece. Booklet firm interfacing, so that's this pattern piece here. And with this, you are cutting out the 4 Peltex pieces or any other firm sew-in interfacing that you have. And then 4 heavyweight fusible, which, as I mentioned earlier, can be Decaville Light or fusible fleece again, or you can do like what I've done. I've used my heavyweight woven interfacing, so it's got a really crisp feel to it. So that's what I'll be using. And the last thing you're going to need, and I just realized that I forgot to cut out the fabric for it, but you need your booklet spine. So that's this little piece of fabric right here. For this one, I went and used the same fabric that I used for this binding and for the vinyl pouch upper panel. But I actually haven't decided what I'm going to use yet for this booklet. But this is the interfacing piece for it, and I'll be cutting a fabric piece exactly the same size. Okay, so now that we've gone through all the pieces that we need to cut, we're going to interface. And I'm going to go ahead and fuse my fusible woven interfacing to the wrong side of all my fabric pieces, and then we'll talk about some specifics that we need to do for additional interfacing. All of my cotton pieces with the fusible woven interfacing, we're just going to add a couple of things. You're going to need the heavyweight fusible interfacing. So either fusible fleece, Decaville Light, or I'm using my heavyweight woven. So you're going to need those 4 pieces, and those should have been cut, just as a reminder, from the Booklet Firm Interfacing Pattern piece. And those are going to be fused to the wrong side of 4 pieces that you cut from the pouch body pattern piece. So you're going to fuse them to the 2 exterior pieces and the 2 pieces that are going to be behind your mesh pocket. So if you remember earlier, I mentioned that I'm going to have these owls behind the mesh pockets. So these ones will also get some of this heavyweight fusible. And now when you're fusing that to the wrong side, this piece is obviously smaller. So you want the rounded corners to be close to the rounded corners of the fabric and leave about 1/2 inch of space along these edges here. And then you'll have a bigger space here and here. That's what you want. So 1/2 inch of space here, and then a lot more space here and here. And the very last thing we're going to do is fuse some fleece to the wrong side of one of our tab closure pieces. So you're not doing it on the one that's going to be on the top, you're fusing it to the one that's going to be at the bottom or the wrong side of the tab where we're installing the magnetic snap. So if you want, you can trim some seam allowance from this piece of fusible fleece. If you're worried about bulk, I'm not too worried. So I'm not going to do it. But yeah, if you're worried, you should trim away the seam allowance. Okay, and that's it. We're done our interfacing. It's extremely simple. Then in the next video, we're going to do the assembly of our booklet.